time it is. It's time to get down and dirty in my kitchen where I'm gonna make something delicious, nutritious. Hopefully it'll make you hungry and inspire you to make it at home. It's a special recipe, what we're doing today. I'm making halal. Yeah, the New York City streetcar halal food that you guys probably, if you're in New York, know of, or if you're in a major urban area, you may know of this too because it's kind of exploding all over the U.S. What started off with something that was intended to meet the needs of an incoming population of immigrants that were Muslim. They wanted to eat halal food. Has now become mainstream because it's so delicious. And you know me, I like to crack the code. I like to figure out what's in food that I like, and I figured this one out, and I want to share it with you and announce that I have a spice that you're going to be able to buy to make this in your kitchen. So we're going to start with the bread. When you're cooking, you always want to start with the thing that's going to take the longest time. A lot of times if you're making like rice or whatever, or beans, you want to like start to soften those or cook your rice. Today we're going to be making bread, and it's flatbread. And because it's going to take a while and it's yeasted, we're going to start with that. Although I have some cookie show magic that I'll show you later. And what we're going to do is we're going to, in a bowl, we're going to mix 2 teaspoons of yeast. This is active dry yeast. And we're going to do a tablespoon of sugar. And then to this yeast has been sitting and it's been asleep for a while. It needs to be nudged so that it can wake up and live again. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to add a little bit of warm water to it. And the warm water is just basically going to nudge it. It's going to say, hey, it's time to be alive. And I've given it some sugar because the sugar is what it's going to eat. So once it starts to wake up with this warm water, it's going to start to eat the sugar. You want your warm water to be that warm, not hot. Because if you actually make it too hot, you're going to kill your yeast. If you don't make it warm enough, it's going to just not do anything. So we're going to leave the yeast here with the water and the sugar. And you're going to see how this thing here is going to change in just a bit. So if my dear husband would please pass me the marinade so I can start moving on to the next thing. We're multitasking. We're going to put this aside. It needs probably like 3 to 5 minutes to do its thing. I'm going to move on to make a marinade. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a marinade for this halal chicken, and we're going to use this very special spice mix that we've concocted in our kitchen, and it's taken a long time to figure it out, boy. I mean, if you've ever had halal food, you're just like, what's in here? And I was just for a long time trying to figure it out, doing research, testing the recipe live with a lot of my young people when I do cooking workshops, and gauging from their reactions how close I was. So many times when we start cooking and the aromas and the smells would start to take over the room, I'd be like, is this halal smelling like the halal streetcar from around the way? Nailed it. Okay, so this is how we're going to start. We're going to start with yogurt. And I'm going to get some more ingredients over here. Now, the yogurt is especially useful when you're using, like when you're marinating lamb or something that's a little bit more gamey and needs a little bit more tenderizing. Chicken doesn't really need that much, but we're going to use it for flavor and for tanginess, and also just to kind of be the vehicle that's going to drive the flavors into the chicken. So we're starting with a 1/3 cup-ish of yogurt, and I use full fat, grass-fed yogurt. We're going to grate in here a whole shallot, and I like to use this little gadget. It's like my favorite tool, and I will have it available at some point for you to purchase it as I test out different kitchen gadgets that I love and I think are deal breakers in my kitchen. And so I grate it. I like this particular grater because it has a little catching tray at the bottom, so I don't have to make a mess. I don't have to like get the shallot all over the place. And this is a part when I do cooking workshops with young people that I get to laugh at because it's happening to me right now. I'm feeling the actual onion in my eyes. I'm pretty soon going to be tearing up. And I hope I didn't do too much mascara or eyeliner because I'm going to be looking like a raccoon in like 5 seconds. So I'm grating the shallot. I've seen some funny memes about people that are done crying that they don't even let their shallots or onions make them cry, but I haven't figured out how to do that yet. I still cry. And I thought, you do this, the more you do it, the better you get at it, but it's like, there's no way. And there's like all sorts of tricks that you can do. Di que because to keep you from crying. I tried a few. One of them is chewing gum while you're doing it. It doesn't really work. So I don't have any advice on how to keep the tears from coming. Actually, crying is great. It's a way to detox. So let the tears come. Let that saline exit your body. Okay, so I grated the shallot. I'm going to slice this lemon. Question.
You ever put onions in the freezer before you cut them?
I've heard of that. I've not tried it.
Repeat the question.
Have you ever put onions in the freezer before you cut them or grate them? I've heard that's one of the tricks. I've read so many. Tried probably not that many. But maybe I'll try next time and let you know. Have you tried?
That was a suggestion.
So to our 1/3 cup of yogurt, I'm gonna squeeze a lemon, the juice of a lemon. And this is about a little bit more than a 1/3 cup because I have more than like, I think I have like almost 3 pounds of chicken, like 2.5 pounds of chicken. So I'm gonna add a little bit more juice. Then we're gonna get our shallots out of this thing. This is what's really cool about this gadget. Oh. Oh. Okay, we're gonna just scoop that goodness in there. The shallot is gonna give it just another dimension of flavor. And this is just after testing. But I feel like shallot, and garlic are one of those things that really make this recipe delicious. So let me grab the garlic. We're gonna do 2 cloves of garlic. You prepare and then you realize you didn't prepare. So I'm gonna just get the skin off the garlic here and add it to this marinade. Ooh, and our bread is bubbling. That yeast is going to work and it's doing what yeast does, waking up, it's eating sugar and it's creating CO2. And I tell my young people, it's farting. It's creating gas, and that's what you want because that's what's gonna make your bread nice and fluffy and delicious. And you can make this flatbread without the yeast if you want. You can actually create roti with it without yeast. You can, because you flatten out roti like really thin, so you really don't need that elevation. But you still could use the yeast in roti. So I'm actually gonna take this off and grate this straight over my marinade. 2 cloves of garlic. Very top secret recipe, y'all. That's how much I like you. I spent a long time perfecting this. So I'm gonna do the garlic. In the bowl it goes, into the party. If you have a big chunk, don't worry, use it all. I'm a fan of not wasting any food. And then to this, we are going to add our secret ingredients, the spice mix. 3 tablespoons of this spice mix. Now this is gonna marinate about 2 pounds of chicken. I did a little bit more, so I'm gonna do like heaping tablespoons of spice. Salt's already in there. Spices are perfect. All we gotta do is mix it. Shallot, garlic, yogurt, spice mix, and don't be afraid to taste it to see if it's good. Because you could add more mix if you want, more spice mix, more shallot. You can make it your own. So this is just my suggestion. You guys do what you want in your kitchen. So this is nice and mixed. And I'm gonna do the taste on my little knuckle there. Wow. It's a party in my mouth. Boom, chicken. I'm using chicken thighs. Before this live, I did quite a bit of prep. I know I make cooking look easy, but trust me, before I go on here, I do a lot of preparations. And that's what you call mise en place, and that's what you're gonna do at home, so you can actually glide through your cooking and not be so stressed out. You prep, whether you're gonna go on live or you're gonna just cook for your family that's coming over, or cook for yourself. Mise en place, prepare, chop, get all your ingredients ready so that you can flow, and that's what we call flowing in the kitchen. You flow better when you prep. Okay, so that's an important step that I suggest you don't skip. Our marinade from the chicken, it looks beautiful. And we're gonna mix it through. Now I know they say, do not leave chicken out or do not leave meat out. But we're gonna let this marinate room temperature out for about 10 to 15 minutes while I mix the bread, and that'll be completely fine. It's not enough time for anything weird to happen. And I like to use thigh. That's what you find in the street cart vendors. They usually use thighs. They're not using breast. And it's got a lot more flavor. It's cheaper, more affordable. I bought these thighs at Trader Joe's. No bone, no skin. And they were pretty good quality chicken. I would have liked the bones and skin because I like to use the bones for stock and the chicken for schmite. Some good chicken fat. Not afraid of that. I actually left some fat on this chicken because I want that fat. I'm gonna use it. So as I'm mixing this, I want to make sure everything's covered. When I do this recipe with my young people, like I will go into the detention center, so I can't bring metal, and I had to get creative, and I figured out how to do it in a way that is great. So we would usually put it in a Ziploc bag, and we put like the marinade in there, and then we like pass the bag around to like different youth, and they would just like in the Ziploc bag get the marinade all in there and pass it to the next one. And one time the bag almost exploded, and we had like raw chicken all over our counter. But that's what cooking is all about. So we're gonna put this aside, and now we're gonna be thinking, this is gonna be cooking in 10 minutes. I'm gonna preheat my pan. Depending on what pan you're using, if you're using a cast iron, you wanna definitely start preheating it a while before, because you're gonna want to make sure that that heat is evenly distributed. I'm using a electric stove, and so I don't have to like rush, but I'm gonna just start it to get warm so it's ready for me. Now, as that is sitting there, I'm gonna give my counter a quick wipe. Wipey wipe. We have raw chicken here. I like to keep a little bowl with bleach, so I can wipe counters, especially when I'm working with raw meat, especially chicken, to just make sure that I'm not cross-contaminating. So I keep a little rag nearby. Now, check this out. The yeast has gone to work. It's woken up, it's feasted on the sugar, and it's created a lot of gas. So it's gonna look a lot of foamy, like really foamy. Now to the flour, I'm gonna add 3 cups of flour, and of course we need salt. I'm gonna add a teaspoon of salt to that. And I'm gonna mix this through to make sure that that bread has flavor. Life is lifeless without salt. So even when you don't think you're tasting salt, trust me, there's salt. Similar to sugar. There's a lot of things that do call for sugar that you may not know is there, and it just changes the whole thing. So we're sneaking the salt in, good kosher salt. We're mixing it through to make sure that it's distributed inside of the bowl with the flour. And this is when we pour the whole thing in. Now this bread is super easy. It's low maintenance. If you've never done anything yeasted, I recommend you try this, because really, literally, you're gonna see it's super, it's just not fussy. You have to do minimal work. So what I suggest is start with a wooden spoon to get it mixed through. Don't put your hand in there. I've had young people put their whole hand in the bowl, and they don't even have dough in their bowl. It's like their hands are completely covered, and it's like, where is your dough? It's like all over their fingers. But I think that's the most nutritious dough, because it's got all their bacteria in there. I'll be like, that's your dough. Go to town, boy. Nobody's gonna eat your bread, but it's gonna feed you, so no problem. But I suggest, if you don't want to have fun with maybe a 2-year-old, because it could be a fun activity too, you use a wooden spoon to mix it through, and you're gonna see that it's gonna come together, and it's gonna be easier to handle. I don't feel like having a ton of dough in my hands today, so I'm not gonna put my hands in it yet until I see that it's sort of becoming into one single mass. And what we want to do is we kind of want to work to create a nice smooth ball, and it does not look like that at all. But we're gonna get it there. Now I've made this recipe like 100 times, a lot. So every time I do the workshops, the young people are like, "Dad, miss," be like, "Practice, that's all it is." Now this bread, I recommend you make it because it's easy, non-temperamental, super like low maintenance. But you can turn this bread into buns. You could turn this bread into gozleme, which is like a Turkish flatbread, which is stuffed with like spinach, and cheese or potatoes. You can also make this bread and make like a stuffed roti. You can make a roti. You can flatten it really, really thin, throw it on the grill. And with this curry recipe, it's hella good. So, but we're gonna make more of like a naan type, like a naan, N-A-A-N bread. And it's gonna also kind of be similar to Greek bread, sort of like a gyro. And what's really cool about halal food is that it's like, you don't find halal food in the Middle East. No one says halal food over there because it's all halal. No one's saying you can find halal food there because, again, everything over there is halal, right? What is halal? It is basically the Muslim law of food. So it's like the process by which you kill an animal or butcher an animal, which is very different to our process here in the US. And it's much cleaner. And the Muslim law says it should be humane and not painful for the animal. And so, I don't know, I've never actually purchased, I think I did once purchase halal food. And I don't know, I think it could be better quality. So if you see it and you want to make this actually halal, not just halal spice, go for it. Get the halal chicken or get halal lamb. And yeah, it should be good. But what's cool about this recipe is that it's really like a New York City type recipe. It's one of those things like hot dogs or pretzels or even pizza, right? It's kind of like the entry-level job for a lot of immigrants that are coming into the city. And this is the way that they make their mark, they make their money and their way, and then they leave their imprint, right, with their food that we all becomes mainstream and we all want to love, right? It was intended to feed cab drivers that didn't have access to halal food. It started with a guy who was like, there's all these cab drivers, they're mostly Muslim, and they're looking for halal food. And it was really like a way to give those cab drivers an option to eat cheap, affordable, flavorful, nutritious. Depends how you make it, right? And all of a sudden it exploded. And this is a New York City thing. So you're not gonna find halal in Egypt or in Turkey. It's just a New York City thing. And the bread that I'm making, it's more like a Greek style. So it's kind of like a fusion of all these cultures, which is so beautiful because that's what happens in these big cities when you have like all these people living together and cohabitating together. So it's a Greek kind of style bread with a Middle Eastern inspired spice, with a Greek type of white sauce and a North African red sauce that we call harissa, or they call harissa. I think that's what the red sauce is all about, but I'm going to show you in a bit. So now I'm just working the dough a little bit. Remember I said I'm looking for a smooth mass. And what I'm doing here is kind of just developing the gluten, which people are running from these days, rightfully so. But when we work with our young people, we're not going to expect them to go from wonder processed bread to no bread. So I use this recipe as an example of how many ingredients are usually found in commercial breads, and I compare it to a very popular bread that we're used to that has 26 ingredients, and probably 23 of them we can't pronounce. So this is just flour, yeast, salt, a little sugar, and a little water. And it's kind of, it helps them hopefully think about what does it really take to make food, you know? Does it need all the stuff that's on the ingredient list? Maybe not. It came together-ish. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil so it doesn't stick because it's gonna rise. And I wanna have an easy time getting it out of here later. So I'm gonna rub it. I usually say rub it on like it's SPF or lotion, top and bottom. Now we're gonna put it aside. I'm gonna give my hands a quick wash. And we're clearing the counter. Now, it's hard to get some of that wet dough off my actual board, so I keep either a bench scraper, which I cannot find. I have one, but I can't find it. So what I have is a knife. So with the knife, I'm gonna just scrape the rest of that flour on my counter. Nice clean. Give it another wipe. Now again, this bread recipe is like, I've seen people use milk instead of water. I feel like it doesn't need it. I've made it with yogurt. I didn't think it needed it. And what I like about it is that if you do happen to have a vegan person coming over or a friend, this is a vegan bread. And so if you wanted to take this recipe and make like a vegan style halal meal, swap the chicken for some chickpeas, some carrots, some potatoes, and you're good to go. So now you know that my chicken has been marinating and my pot has been warming. Let's bring this to the center here. Actually, let me just bring it up here. This. I'm gonna start with high heat oil. High heat, good oil. Which if you have been following me, you know about me. You know it's avocado. It could also be coconut. But I don't want to have coconut flavor in this dish. So I'm going to just use a little bit of avocado. You can see my pan is already hot. You can see how the oil is kind of streaming through the bottom there. The sign is that it's ready. And we're going to just throw this in here. This is my favorite part because the moment, and I know y'all can testify, this hits the pan with the hot oil. Oh my God. I used to joke with my young people, and when I do the workshops with my young people, I'll be like, we can start a halal truck business. What we got going on? It tastes and smells amazing, legit. So I kind of want to mock the street cart style. You can cover this and create sort of like a juicy chicken, which is great too. But I want a drier chicken. So I'm gonna put the temperature, which is always hard for me to see here. It's about 350. And I'm gonna just set it aside and like leave it. Let me just show you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna like kind of leave it a little open so it doesn't like dry out, but I also don't want it soupy. Let me just do that when I put it down so I don't drop my lid. I don't want an accident today. Question.
Have you ever used hemp oil? If so, what do you think about it?
Hemp oil to cook? No, I have not used hemp oil, but educate me. Share something. So here is where the cooking show magic happens. I'm going to show you that our bread has risen. Look at that. This is not the bread that I started at the beginning. I started this bread about 40 minutes before we went live, so it could be ready for this moment. We don't want to sit around here looking at me like chat away and bore you to death. So it's ready for us now. If you were to do this at home, what we did before, you just leave it 40 to an hour. A lot of times it's under an hour if I'm doing a workshop, and it works out anyway. So you see, we just deflated it, right? All that yeast and sugar went to work. The yeast also eating the starches in the flour. There's sugar in the starch as well. Boom, and it just went to work. Did its thing. It's gonna give us those bubbles that we're gonna be looking for. We're gonna give it just a quick, what is this called? Kneading to form it into a nice ball, and then we're gonna cut it into 8 equal parts. And you can get very technical with this. You can take a scale and you can weigh the parts equally, but I eyeball everything. So I have a nice circle here. I'll take a knife. Again, if I had a bench scraper, that would be a nice tool, but you don't need anything fancy. A knife will just do. I'll cut it in half. Now I have 2 pieces. I go from 2 pieces to 4. Make sure they're nice and unstuck. I cut the 4 pieces to 8 by cutting each one into 2. You're gonna want to let this dough relax. If you like start working it and and kneading it, which is like kind of like tempting because I think it's so therapeutic to work with dough that it's easy to start to like finagle and mess with it a lot. You're gonna toughen it up. It's gonna just shrink up again, and you're gonna be like stretching it, and it's gonna be like, I don't want to. Let me rest. And that's what dough wants. When you see a recipe that says let the dough rest, that's what's happening. You're agitating the proteins and the gluten in there, and you want to give it time to like just relax, and that'll work with you. So I'm gonna take each individual piece. The dough should be sticky, but should not stick to your hand. That's what you're looking for. It's sticky, but it's not staying behind my hand. So that's the texture you want. People are tempted to go ahead and do more flour here. If it's really sticky that it's sticking to my hands, I would, but it's not. It's actually working beautifully. So I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna do a little flour on my board and just set it aside and move on to the next dough. We have 8 of them here. Our chicken is cooking and it's smelling amazing. Oh, let's heat up our grill because we're gonna grill these right away. And the grill takes some time. It's an electric grill. I've developed a skill with electric grills and electric pots because it's what I cook in most of the time that I'm doing these workshops. I can't take my stove, but I wish I had gas. Boy, I wish I had gas. I would do some stuff with gas, but we make it work. If you have an electric stove, you can still make magic. It's just my preference. So this stove is just perfect. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a little ball, and I have to kind of tuck the top to the bottom to make a nice circle. It's just gonna help us shape the dough later a little easier. And what you want is you don't want it to stick to your hands. If you're using any flour, it's mostly so that you don't have it stick to your hands or your counter, not because you're trying to put more flour in there. It's absolutely perfect. The ratios are perfect every single time. 3 cups of flour and 1.5 cups of water. That's it. I've seen people use like 2/3 cup of water and like 1/3 cup of milk. You can try that. I feel like this dough is perfect. So now that we have our little 8 balls formed, I'm gonna start with my first one because this one has been relaxing a little longer. And it'll probably collaborate with me a little more. You can use a rolling pin if you want. You can use your hands. I like to use my hands. I take it and I kind of rotate it and I flatten the edges. Then I put it down and press the center. Naan is in the shape of like, it's oval usually, but I'm thinking as I'm shaking this bread, that's what I tell my young people is remember you're gonna put your chicken and your toppings on this bread, so shape it in a way that you think is gonna be much more comfortable to roll or to like close, and that's a circle. So I'm stretching it, it's cooperating with me, it's nice and relaxed, I haven't agitated it much, I didn't knead it for like another 2 minutes. If you do knead it, again, for a long time, just let it rest because it needs to come back to itself. And then it'll just go places with you. Wherever you want to take it. I've had the most popular shape that young people shape their breads in is in a heart shape. The first one, I was like, oh, how cute. And then it ended up being like the thing that most girls did. I don't know why. I was like, I shaped mine into a heart. I'm like, how cute. I shape it in whatever way it like comes out. This is how homemade food is not standardized. It's gonna look different. You're not gonna have the same type of bread every time. It's gonna do what it wants, and you're gonna go with the flow. And look, this one looks pretty much like naan. I put this aside as my skillet warms and go to the next piece. I'll show you slowly what I'm doing. I do like to get a little flour in my fingers so I can flow better. I press the edges. I press. Let me just do it slow. Press, put it down, and press with my fingers. Naan has that shape, you know, like when you see like a handled naan, you see those little holes in there. That means it's been handled by someone's fingers. And I think it's beautiful. Again, rolling pin is fine if that works for you. So I'm kind of pressing and slightly pulling. Like, don't do this. Oh my God, that kills me. Every time I see somebody doing this, I'm like, stop it. Just work with it. And it's gonna take time. Like the more you do it, the more you're gonna kind of get this, feel for it. You're gonna develop a relationship with it, and then you're gonna probably be making your own sourdough starters. And yeah, just brings you in. As you can see, this one looks nothing like the first one. It wants to be a circle, and actually that'll be kind of nice for our halal gyro. I probably will not roll all of them out. I don't know how I'm doing on time here. I kind of want to stop in 10 minutes. So I'm going to do 2. These, if you're going to not make them right away, and even as you're rolling them out, they can dry out. You'll see that it'll develop a crust. You can do 2 things. You can cover them with olive oil. It'll be fine with olive oil. You can just cover them with a towel. And then that way they don't dry out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove them and make way for the chicken to show you what's happening there. And then we're going to make a yogurt sauce, which, by the way, the white sauce in halal, it's mayo based. And I've tried a few different recipes, and like I don't love the mayo alone. So I have like a mayo and yogurt base. So we're going to do that. Roll this out a little bit more. These are almost ready to be grilled. I'm waiting for my grill to warm up. Let's give this chicken a little bit of a toss. It's over. I want this to dry. It's still very soupy. I kind of want to get the grill mark, and it's still not cooked, so it's good. You can't overcook thigh meat. I feel like you can overcook breast, but thigh meat is like, you can leave it there, get it brown, and you'll still have like a juicy outcome. Oh my God, it smells so good. So I'm gonna keep letting this thing go to town. Right now, I'm gonna just uncover it completely and set it aside. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna swap my grill on my stove. I'm gonna scoot my grill over here. See if I can skip the grill over and get this grill nice and hot. I'm gonna do high heat oil again, a little bit of avocado. I'm gonna spread it with this wonderful brush. I don't know if you can see that on the actual overhead because it's a little bit over. Who? Patricia, hi. Oh my God, I forgot I'm live. Of course. Okay, so it's nice and covered in oil. Put this aside. And I'm gonna throw my bread on here. And here. So, let me show you what that looks like. Now that's grilling, baby. I'm gonna put this away. Stash it. Wipe. Try to keep things clean as much as possible, but it's almost impossible when you're on camera and under pressure. So as the bread grills and the chicken cooks, I'm gonna go over to the yogurt sauce. I'm gonna show you just the simplest way to make this thing happen. Before I move this bread out of the way, I wanna show you what happens when you have yeasted bread. If this were a flatbread with no yeast, there probably would not be any like little bumps here. It will be flatter. There's like a little rise in different parts of the bread that when we turn over are gonna brown, and it's gonna make that classic like non-looking bread. But it's not ready yet. Let me get a little spatula to peek under. It's okay to peek. You want more color than that, so we're gonna leave it for like another 30 seconds to a minute. Move this out of the way. Wipe this clean. And get to our white sauce. Okay, so mayo, yogurt. This is about 1/3 cup of mayo, and this is about 2/3 cup of yogurt. Use just a regular spoon. Let's put the mayo into the yogurt. If you wanted to make the sauce runnier, I actually like it runnier because I want to mock that New York City street cart yogurt sauce or white sauce. So you can add milk or water. You could also grate a cucumber in here. And usually when you're making a Greek like tzatziki sauce, which calls for yogurt, you like squeeze out this is a nice color. I'm gonna just flip it. Oh, this is a nice color, and look at those bubbles. Look at the bubbles. You would usually grate the cucumber and you would get the juice out, but I don't if I'm gonna add it to this because I want that runny consistency, and it just comes naturally from the cucumber water. I don't want to grate cucumber right now. I'm gonna skip it. This sauce can look however you want it to look. I'm gonna add a little bit of lemon juice for a little tang. And I'm gonna add garlic, a little bit of lemon zest. It's actually the first time I put lemon zest. I'm just drying it because I didn't wanna waste it. I'm like, this is perfectly good organic lemon. Like, let me zest a little bit and just dry that lemon a little deeper. It'll also help us to thin out the sauce. You could also thin it out with vinegar if you want tanginess. You could do a little bit of white vinegar. You could do red wine vinegar. Anything that you really like. The garlic is really the game changer here. So I'm gonna add 1 or 2 garlic cloves. Just see what it does. I taste as I go. Usually do garlic by pressing it with my palms, loosening the skin. Everybody has a different technique, and I do different things different times. Sometimes I use a knife. I've seen people do like put the garlic in a jar. I'm like, yeah, that's more work. I'm gonna shake garlic cloves in a jar and open the jar and close the jar. Sometimes you can just also take off the top of the garlic and just it removes quickly. Let's look at our bread because this thing is high. Oh, look at it. No, that's a classic non-looking bread with the little dots. It's perfect. I'm gonna remove it because I don't want to kill them and put them right here because they're gonna be waiting for that chicken when it's ready. I'm gonna turn this off and continue with my sauce. Okay, so we have the garlic cloves peeled. We take this grater orange. We're gonna add the garlic clove in here quickly. Now I've had this sauce. I have a very good friend who's Turkish, and her mom wowed me once with her yogurt sauce, which they have with every meal. And it's just yogurt and garlic and salt and pepper. And that's what I usually do, but I wanted to stay true to the halal secret, which is mayo based, so I added mayo here. But you make it and see what you think. Usually just yogurt and garlic, salt and pepper is enough. So I'm gonna mix this, dry my hands so I can get some of that salt in here. A little salt, some pepper. Mix. And then give it a taste. Yum. It's good. Okay, now I'm gonna take the chicken right quick and bring you with me. It's drying. It's not quite as dry as I want it yet, and it's not browned yet. Oh, it's actually sticking and browning a little bit. So I'm gonna just loosen it up. Now this curry mix, this halal mix, halal because this is not halal like I explained. This is the halal style curry. You can use this. I sent some samples out with my arroz, and people were doing all sorts of cool stuff with it, like roasting chicken thighs in the oven, putting it on eggs. There's no rules. This is not the only thing you can make with it. I will send you this recipe verbatim with your order if you order. But you can please actually do something different and let me know what you do, because the funnest part of seeing you guys use like the adobo and the halal is seeing what you create that I've never even thought of. That's like really cool. So I'm gonna put this back. I'm gonna lower the heat a little bit. Which way is lowered? And this is off. And this is good. toppings in the fridge, I think. I don't know if it's here or there. It's a tray with toppings.
Question about what you look for in vegan yogurt. Any tips about finding vegan yogurt?
Okay, always when I look for anything that's not made in my house, that's not like starting with the raw ingredients, is the ingredient list. If it's vegan yogurt, what milk are they using? Is it coconut milk? Is it almond milk? And then if it should just be the milk and cultures. So really a yogurt should be two things. If it's real milk, it should just be one thing. It's just cultured milk, and it happens on its own if you do the slow process. If you buy a non-dairy yogurt, then the process is that milk and culture is added to it, and then that's what it is. So if it has, it may have sugar, it may have stabilizer or like a preservative, which is common. But I'm looking for my toppings. That's what you should look for. Always look for less ingredients. Less ingredients is more. Better. I think it might be in this refrigerator. So the halal usually is a white sauce, and it's usually over rice, but I'm making bread today because bread is cool. It's usually the white sauce, which is a yogurt base or a mayo base, depending on how you want to make it. And this red sauce, which is what's really cool about this, because the red sauce, they won't tell you it's harissa, but the suspicion is that it's a Northern African inspired hot sauce, which is chilies, red peppers, caraway seeds, cumin. And I have two examples here. My friend brought them over because I didn't have any. I'm like, you have harissa? And she brought like the coolest can straight from Tunisia, which is that African country right there at the top next to Morocco and, oh gosh, I'm going to get it wrong, Algeria. And so this should be like really legitimate, and I have no idea how I'm going to make a red sauce, but I'm going to taste it and see if it works. This is another harissa option, which Trader Joe's has. It's a harissa paste. I think they're going to vary in heat, so the best way is to taste. So the white sauce and the red sauce work together. The red sauce is going to be spicy. The white sauce is supposed to be cooling. Kind of like Mexican food. You have like a salsa roja or a salsa verde, and then you have the crema. And the crema kind of counteracts the spiciness. Kind of like you're a masochist, right? Like you want the heat, but you also want to cool it down at the same time. So that's what it's all about. Suffering a little bit and enjoying it. Wow. I'm going to leave this as is, okay? Because I have no time to do anything with it. I'm just going to sprinkle a little dollop on top as I build my halal. I probably would add maybe, if anything, some more olive oil to make it runnier. But it really is, it's great on its own, and it's got the right amount of heat. So let's build, y'all, so we can get out of here. And you can go in your kitchen and tell me that you actually ordered my halal and you made some bread. Okay, let me get rid of this altogether. I don't need to grill any more bread. I'm going to scoot over the chicken.
Question about how spicy it is.
Oh, man. How spicy? That's such a... It depends on who you are. I like to think that I can handle pretty spicy. I lived in Arizona, and the Mexicans enculturated me, and I could do some spice. So for me, how spicy, given the fact that I could handle more heat than my husband, which he doesn't have a high tolerance. I would say it's probably like it has got like an initial heat, and then it kind of goes away, which is good because I don't want to be left burning. So the initial heat is like 7, maybe 6, and then it comes down to like a 4 or 3, and it's mild. So I'm not sure if that helps. This chicken is browning, and it's drying. All the flavors and the spice, and then the yogurt, and then the lemon, and then the shallot have all concentrated and have been absorbed into this beautiful thigh meat. And I'm just going to plop it over my bread. Here's how we build our halal gyros. There's no science to this. It's your science, and it's nobody's business what you do. If you like it, that's what matters. If it's nutritious, that's what matters. If you're not using processed breads and crappy meat, and that's really what matters. That's what we want to do. This looks like a weird shape, so I'm going to plop this thing mostly here. Maybe I can hold it like this. The idea here is that we're using homemade bread, empowering you to use yeast and to know that you don't have to buy breads that have a ton of additives or chemicals or ingredients. Really, bread is super simple. If you ever go to the store and you buy a certain kind of bread, just look at the ingredient list. And if it's got more than yeast, water, salt, sugar, flour, did I say flour? Then you should question it. So I'm probably going to do the lettuce over these bad boys. Little lettuce. Usually it's iceberg lettuce that the halal trucks use, but I always like to take the opportunity to like up it a little bit. There's nothing wrong with iceberg lettuce. I think iceberg lettuce brings a lot of water and freshness, and it's good fiber. But I do like sometimes to replace it for romaine, just for a bit more color. I'm gonna put some tomatoes. This usually does not have cucumber, but I just said it's my business what I do with my halal rolls, so I'm gonna add cucumbers because I like it. And usually young people are very open to cucumbers and tomatoes. I don't have to convince some onions they're not so thrilled about, but I've converted a few. But at least they know they can try at some point, and maybe they'll go back to it and fall in love with onions. I didn't like onions as a kid either, so no judgment. We all grow and our palates change. The idea is to expose and to get them to try. This looks great. I'm gonna just drizzle the yogurt sauce, yogurt/mayo sauce. Now I have 2 assistants today here, so I guess it's gonna be none for me since they've been working so hard. None for me. One for my 2. None for me. And that's okay because they have more bread. I'm gonna just, I would make this runnier if I had more time with a little bit of oil, but I don't. And I'm not gonna do too much because my husband actually doesn't eat spicy, so I'm gonna just do a little bit on my friend who I think is bold and likes to heat. This is it, guys. This is it. Make it. Buy the halal. Tell your friends about us. Support local businesses. Go on my website. The link to my page, to my cook shop, has been pinned. So if you're on Facebook, click it. Go order. I have a bundle special if you order an adobo and the halal. You get it for 10. Prices have gone up to the regular price. I had it on sale for a while. It's too bright, you can't see it. And I cover it. This is it. This is my little pack. Well, it's not coming up. You'll see it online. Promise. See ya.